Yeah, thanks for being here. Obviously, the bye week is over, which is great. We found ourselves, just continuing to improve and get better every single day. And I think it's a good rest for our guys. We had a bunch of them that were pretty sick and guys that were a little bit, banged up, which I think that's just the sickness has been going around. But hopefully they had a chance to recover and get back here. And now it's time to get back into game week. Obviously, a great opponent that we have a chance to go travel down and play. A rivalry that I guess will be one of the latest scheduled out rivalries in all of sports at this moment, which is something I think that some are excited about, some not so excited about. At the same point in time, this is a team that's very capable, a very good football team, and we got to make sure that we bring everything we got to it, which we're excited to just get back to work.
With the Saturday off, were you able to watch that game live between Liberty and Bowling Green?
I did not watch it live, no, but we did watch a lot of it and, made sure it all looked the same and was, what we thought.
What are you seeing out of them early right now? I know quarterback position they have Vasco, but he's gotten a little banged up with some of the hits that he's taken. Yeah. So what have you just kind of seen out of that off?
Yeah, I think he's a tough kid, though. I don't see him coming out of a game, willingly. He had to come out for one play, but then went right back in. And he's just a big physical kid. We know that from playing him a year ago. He's a tough, football player and a really, excellent, he's a competitor. You like watching him play. So that stands out. Obviously, the running back, number 23, who gets himself rolling right now is really physical, downhill, lowers his pads, does a phenomenal job in the run game. And then they use number 1 a whole bunch. I think he was a little bit nicked up last game, but he comes out of the backfield. He's on the, pitch element of the triple option quite a bit. And then they just use him in a lot of different ways to get him out of the backfield on linebackers, on whoever they can, however they can. So there's a lot in there. He's a pretty versatile player. The tight end, I think, is really tough. So when you go through the offense, they play a really good brand of football on the offensive side. Defensively, similar. Their defensive line is good. Their linebackers are downhill, and their DBs are long and athletic, and the whole thing's put together well. The kick returner is number 1, so he's a threat, a giant threat back there. We got to be careful with him. And then their punter, I think, is one of the better right now in the at least ranked preseason in the country. So there's a lot in here that's really good. They're coming off of 2 losses, so for them, obviously their drive and their competitiveness and the taste in their mouths, I'm sure, is pretty bitter. And I know that they'll be throwing everything they possibly can at us, and that's what I think our guys are excited about coming into this week.
I know we talked to you early during the bye week, but now on this side of it, how do you feel you guys did during the bye week? What did you see out of your guys? Did you sort of hit the things you guys wanted to hit?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we did a lot of that. We knew on offense, just overall programmatically, you got to clean up the penalties, right? You can't give up 100 yards of penalties in a game and expect to win against anybody, yet alone against the team that we just played. So there's a lot of that's got to get cleaned up in there, which, some of it's on us, some of it was called one way only, and that just is the nature of the beast when you're going in to play one of those games. But it is what it is. We got to get that squared away. We got to clean up some of the protection stuff. You don't want to throw everything away, though, because of the D-line you just played, right? That team was really, really good. And I think everything we've done up to that point into Weber, into that week, and then you just end up playing a pretty tough opponent, when it came to just being able to protect. So that's something we have to have answers for, which I like where we're at. And then defensively in the red zone, I thought we've done a nice job, but that's probably where we're lacking, if anywhere. And then on special teams, our punt has to get a little bit better. Just on our protection's fine. We just got to get the ball out and a little bit better. So those are all things that we knew we had to focus on. Our competitiveness was excellent during that bye week. I love the way that we competed against each other, and that's really what it's about, is just iron on iron, just keep sharpening it. And you get to do that in the bye week, when you have a day that doesn't have any scout in it, then the next 2 do, you have a chance to really cross over and just keep getting better.
You mentioned Liberty right now coming in with that 1-2 record and maybe a little bit more of a down year than they were expecting heading into the season. It's early. How much energy do you think they are going to come out getting back home and hopefully trying to turn it around after a 2-game skid?
Yeah, a ton. And I think from what I understand, their fans support it that way too. So I haven't been there to a game, so I don't necessarily know, but I know that, if it's anything like this, which they say it is, it's sold out. I'm sure that has a chunk to do with our people going down there too. So it's just one of those things that, you're going to walk into a pretty hostile environment. And, I think that one we just played in helps prepare you for that. And we're hoping that it has a ton of energy, every which way. And, we'll be excited about that opportunity.
And I know we talked about it last year after you guys beat ODU, but these in-state games always seem to be a little bit more special, have that higher energy, and JMU's riding a pretty long win streak when it comes to in-state opponents. So what kind of is the environment like when you are preparing for an in-state opponent? I know it's not the only thing you guys are focusing on, but does it add that kind of extra little boost?
I don't know really that it does. I don't think it doesn't necessarily matter who we're going to play. Our preparation's our preparation, so that's not that big of a deal. But I do think there's a lot of guys on that team, that we were in the mix with recruiting. There's a lot of guys on our team that were looking also at Liberty. So I think that there's that commonality between, that the recruiting area and the bases that you're going to recruit. And I think that has probably more to do with it from guys that were thinking about choosing them and chose us, or thinking about choosing us and chose them. I think it would belong to those guys more than anything, or having friends on the team because of the, the regional element to it. But ultimately, preparation's no different.
I know the Sun Belt as a conference really takes pride in regional rivalries. Is it pretty cool to kind of develop those rivalries in non-conference play, especially this is going to be the first of many meetings for the next 15 years?
Yeah, so I think, that's something that the Sun Belt really does. When we were just down there, it's something they hang their hat on, is those regional rivalries. But to have another one, in play here, that's not within your conference, is exciting. So I think it's, again, just the commonality of the guys we recruit, the area. If guys are visiting them, they're probably coming up the road and visiting us, or if they're visiting us, they're probably visiting them. It seems to have, the 3 or 4 schools in a general area when guys take the trip through here that, that I think puts you in a position where they're both very much known, entities between probably everybody on our team.
I know there was an early buy for you guys last year, and then there's an early buy this year. Do you like having the early buy? Do you try to plan it that way, or is it just strictly coincidence that it works out?
Yeah, I have nothing to do with that. But I think for me, when you like the idea of the bye after 2 games, especially when you have that, again, 50-some new guys on the team, 60-some a year ago. You get to play a small sample size of 2 games, which now lets you understand exactly who they are in game, which then allows you to start to prepare, all right, well, what do we need to do moving forward here? Who needs more reps? Who needs a little less? How do we go about those certain things and putting the people in position to be successful? So an early bye gives you time to stop for a minute and be able to figure those things out, or discuss those things, or start to prepare those things. The issue with it, though, is like any bye, you get halfway through it and it gets antsy. You're excited to get back to work. You don't want to be too far away from it for too long. So that's the same wherever that bye is placed. I think that early in the season, though, gives you an ability to start to, understand your identity.
And I know Jarvis asked about it being this new established rivalry that's going to have a trophy eventually. Have you started to notice now in your time as JMU's head coach kind of the lack of love between the fan bases, between JMU and Liberty, and the added kind of, rivalry even amongst them?
Yeah, well, I hear about that. Yeah, for sure. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say a dislike, but maybe it just is what it is. I don't know them enough to feel that way, but I think if our fans do, then, that's from history, right? And that's the time spent, with probably your neighbors and the people that have gone there to school, because you're in this general, area like they are. So there's a lot in there. I just hear about it from our alums and, how they feel about it.
Is this offense a little bit different than many you see? We always talk about the triple option, and it's kind of the new age triple option. Is this different than a lot of offenses you see?
Yeah, it is. And I think it's the spread, you're running it from not under center, but it has a lot of the same elements to it. You'll have the orbit motion and the orbit returning back to a triple, and the pistol will become the dive, and sometimes he's the pitch, and the tight end slicing across and kicking out, and sometimes not. There's a lot in here that you got to be really sound in your gaps. You got to be really sound in your option assignments, and you just don't necessarily know which way it's coming. And that's, I think, probably the biggest thing, is that our guys have to play a very disciplined, aggressive brand of football. That's really the only way to manage that. You can't go out there and timidly try to find it. You can't do that. You have to do it, with a lot of discipline and with a lot of, just, violence, for lack of a better term.
I know you were asked this during the conference call as well, just about Ethan Vasco, having played him a year ago. He started the last 2 games against JMU, but does that familiarity, does it help?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it helps in many ways. I said it in that conference call, it's just a very different offense than what he was operating prior. So he's not operating the same exact offense. So it's not a situation where, everything he was doing before fits perfectly here. He's a runner in this thing a whole lot more. And he has the ability to pull the ball down and run, and he's hard to bring down. He took a couple big hits last week, but he gets right back up, and he's a tough kid. So I think all those things, that are still true for him with scheme and with some, extra weapons around him. That's what I notice, is that, he distributes the ball well, and when he needs to carry it himself, he does a phenomenal job, and he's tough. And then on top of it, he's got some guys around him.
I know you mentioned last week they had given up quite a few rushing yards, but their numbers defensively have been very good despite the 1-2 start. Even passing-wise, I think teams are only completing about 43% against them right now. What are you seeing on that side of the football that kind of stands out through 3 games?
Yeah, well, their pass defense is one of the best in the country, I think, right now. So that stands out to me. Is that their DBs are long, like we talked about. They play an aggressive style of ball, and then they mix it up quite a bit. They'll be in 3 down. They'll be in 4 down. They'll blitz the free safety. They'll blitz almost everybody at different points in time, and that aggression certainly shows up. It costs them a couple times here and there just with a missed gap or whatever it might be, but ultimately, they're putting pressure on the quarterback and not letting him feel settled back there. That's what I notice.
Kind of going off what Dave said, they've given up some rush yards, and you guys obviously have several running backs who are capable of carrying the ball. How important are they going to be heading into this weekend?
Yeah, very important, and I think it's a different style of play. There's not to go through so much or too much, but last week was just different. That like we said, that defensive line and those linebackers were just a little bit different, and I think this is this is also a different style. This is not what we just saw, and it's more like us, so I think that's the difference here. And then those other running backs, that maybe didn't get the carries a week ago, I'm excited for them to get a chance to be highlighted and just be able to do what they, know that they can do.